Well, Chief Murray, great to see you.
So thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure, as always. What's prompted your decision to retire?
Well, you know, my wife has been teaching for over 20 years. She's a kindergarten teacher in Yakima Public Schools, and for her, retirement is always going to be by the school year. And so she said June, and we were looking at retirement anyway, and decided we're very close. We decided we'll just retire together, and so I announced my retirement in May. And then, you know, some other things have happened since then, but that's really where we're at. It was time. I feel like we've done a lot of what we were setting out to do in Yakima, and chiefs have a shelf life, and so do I. So that's kind of how we got where we are.
Now, we announced yesterday that we were going to be chatting with you today, and we did get an email that I did want to ask you, because we got actually several viewers have written in. They said, is your decision impacted by a no confidence motion from the Yakima Police Patrolmen's Association?
No, in fact, there was no such vote. There was talk about it, and that is not unusual. Chiefs of police all over the country have to deal with conflict. One of the things that I would want people to know is that the union has to worry about union members. The chief has to worry about that union, another union, the city employees, the city bosses, city leaders, and the entire community. So, you know, we have a different set of interests that we have to worry about, and sometimes those are different. I make decisions based on what I think is best for the community, and I would always continue to do just that.
So it really is a personal decision?
Yeah, you know, in Colorado, it would have been about the right time to retire anyway. I was here 5 years, which is pretty good for a chief. And like I said earlier, I think chiefs do have shelf lives, and I think we've accomplished what I was hoping to accomplish here, and it was just a good time to go.
Now, rumors are swirling that although you've announced your retirement, you are actually in line for a chief position with Spokane.
Yeah.
That maybe you'll be hearing about sometime this week.
Yeah, so I announced my retirement, and we were very happy with that decision, and then all of a sudden I got recruited to apply for that position, and we talked a little bit about it, and we thought, okay, I have a little more gas in the tank, and so probably about a week or so after announcing retirement, I thought, why not and try, and I made the finals, and yes, sometime this week they're going to bring us all out and talk to us, and we'll see where that goes. So really I have two good options. I have a bigger job, or I can just go off and retire. And
in all honesty, what would be your preference?
Oh, you know, here's what's hard. I wouldn't have applied if I wasn't serious about doing the job there. I think Spokane is interesting because a lot of the problems they're facing are very similar to what we're dealing with here in Yakima. And so I think that the challenge would be intriguing and exciting and a bigger stage. But honestly, it will not hurt my feelings if I go and just retire and go find a second life and just go volunteer, or who knows what. We like to travel, we do things like that. So I'm really in a great position, and I'm very much at peace.
Because this is something that's obviously confused our viewers, because, you know, you're retiring, you've talked about what Marcy wants to do in her school year, and then the next thing you're going for another role. So I'm glad you cleared that up for us. But in terms of, you know, where you are and what you want to do next, in terms of leaving Yakima, have you achieved everything you want to achieve? Do you want to achieve more if you were going to Spokane?
Well, I think you can. If you say you've achieved everything, I think that you're probably not being honest. There's a lot that still needs to be done in this community, and I would love to have stayed and been able to do more. But again, I think that it may be best for the city, it may be best for the department to get fresh blood, fresh ideas, continue some of the things that we're doing really well. And honestly, John, my hope for this community is that you get a better chief, or you know, greater results. I mean, it's too important a job, and it's too important an issue to make it personal, and it's not personal for me. It's not a competition. So, you know, I do feel good about what we've accomplished in the last 5 years. I think the community has had some real great success. I'm very happy about that. But again, I just hope nothing but the best for this community. I have been so blessed to be here, and people have been so kind and welcoming, and it's just been a great place to live. But like all things, and you've had this experience, it comes to an end and you move on, and there's another chapter, and I will just face whatever that is and do so happily.
Now, you touched base there on some of the successes that you have and some of the achievements. What's the biggest thing that you really think you've made an impact on here since you've been in Yakima?
Well, the first thing is you're not going to hear me say I, because it's not an individual sport. You know, this is a team sport, and one of the things that I often say is my job is to block downfield, not to score goals. And so I really give the credit to everything that we've been able to do that I think has been pretty dramatic. I'm going to pull up some numbers here for you.
Go for it.
But that is the men and women of the department. That's the officers and detectives and the support staff that have done some really great work. But let me just say, and I think a lot of Yakima misses this, in 3 years from 21, 22, and 23, aggravated assault is down 28%. Burglary is down 39%. Vehicle theft down 29%. Larceny is down 24%. Those are astounding numbers for a community like ours that has really struggled with crime. And our mission that we changed when I got here was we are going to reduce violent crime through exceptional customer service. Well, on that end, we've had a 76% reduction in complaints against police officers. Now, that is totally a credit to the way officers are treating people, and I think that's really important and really critical. And I think I've heard a lot from the community that they can sense that we have responded, and we are much more in line with what the community's expectation is for the way we deliver service. So I'm really proud of the team. I'm really proud of the work. I'm really proud of the numbers. I hope they continue because I think Yakima still has plenty of room for improvement. But that's a dramatic change, and I hope Yakima is very proud of that.
Well, it is, and it's huge, and I'm sure they are. But are you confident that that's the reason for the falls, or are people just reporting less crime?
I'm so glad you asked, John, because I can counter that very quickly. Do you honestly believe that 154 people got their car stolen and just didn't tell anybody?
No.
Or that 151 people were shot or stabbed and didn't go to the hospital? I mean, that's an important number. Think about that. 151 people in 2023 did not get shot or stabbed that were shot or stabbed in 2021. Now, we still have a ways to go, right? I mean, that's important. But yeah, this is not people not reporting crime. These are serious incidents that clearly would have gotten our attention. Are there some cases that go unreported? Absolutely. And I know that people say that all the time. Oh, this is just people that aren't reporting, or this is the police not taking those reports, but not on those serious issues. So I think it's very clear that crime, and there are also some independent measurements of crime that I think are really important. For instance, the state gives money to cities that are in the worst category of crime. We no longer get that money. That's not our control. We would certainly be glad to have the money. That's because the numbers are better, and other people are seeing that. The prosecutors' numbers, the county prosecutors, last year they had 28% less cases filed. Well, again, that's not our numbers, that's their numbers. We're not stopping filing cases, there's just less cases to file. And I think that's not just a result of the police. We can't be solely responsible for crime when it's bad or good. It's really the community's embracing of a concept, focused deterrence, which, if you remember, in 2021 we talked about the book Don't Shoot. That philosophy has really permeated and made a lot of this possible.
Now, there's still, just a couple of weekends ago, we had a whole sort of weekend of violent crime and other issues. Are there frustrations that you've had in your role, things you'd like to have seen improve that simply you haven't been able to move the needle?
Yeah, so this community does have a gang issue. But just prior to that, if you recall, we had the largest indictment in the history of Yakima, 24 people indicted at one time. That's a result of a lot of work that we've been doing with the federal partners, and I cannot say enough about that relationship, nor the U.S. Attorney. They've been just phenomenal. And that's a result of that kind of collaboration and work that I think that the Yakima Police Department is really getting known for. But there are always going to be incidents. I mean, the Circle K where 3 people were shot in one incident, just horrible. I mean, you know, yeah, we have crime, we have gang crime. There's plenty of work still to do. What I'm happy about, what I think the community should be happy about, is clearly we have a good philosophy and direction. And I believe if we don't go to the next shiny object, if we keep our focus on this strategy and philosophy, you're going to continue to see those gains. But, you know, over a 5-year period, are there things that I wish were different? Of course, you know, and I think to the loss of Lucian, the little boy who died in the river, not much we could have done different, but it's just such a heartbreaking incident. I mean, this profession is difficult in that way. We see the worst, we see good people at their worst, and so yeah, there are things I wish were different, but it's also the nature of police work. It's the nature of police work that there's also conflict. There's conflict. There are people in the community who are frustrated by where we've focused our energy. There's people inside the department that are frustrated by where I've focused my energy. You're going to have that in any organization. I think the key is you have to look at things, weigh them against ethics, and just make the best decision you can, and learn from mistakes and move forward as best you can.
One of the things that came up that we were asked about after the shooting at the Seasons Hall was, and I wonder, did you have any input into this ahead of time, saying, look, this is going to create a gang situation? You talked about the gang situation, to say, look, please don't do this.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Would you wish you had?
I think my best answer is I think the city can probably do better and should do better, and but that includes us, and maybe we should have done a better job of knowing more, and that's the kind of thing that really we should all get together and hammer out and come up with a plan for the future, because it's pretty predictable that something bad like that could happen, and of course it did happen.
And it's interesting you say about getting connected and working with organisations, because the example you gave of working with the state attorney, that was a great example of something that's happened. But are you frustrated perhaps in the lack of resources, in the lack of coordination, in the lack of being able to work with different organisations?
Well,
or are you seeing improvements?
I think that we actually do that really well, and I think so it could be done in this case as well. I think that the model is clearly out there and we are participating in it. I mean, you look at the Domestic Violence Coalition, it's just amazing what has happened in the past 3 years. We work now with the Yakima Nation, and we didn't used to do that, and that's another great collaboration. So this could be done here. I think what you don't want is a lot of finger pointing. What you want is a lot of handshaking, and that's what I would hope for, is that we continue to work together and just try to improve. I mean, folks that want to focus on the negative, they're not going to get a lot of my attention, to be honest. I'm really looking for people who are looking for solutions and trying to move forward.
The drug issue is something that has blighted the whole of the United States, not just Yakima, and people talk about gang-related things, and I think it is seen as a very specific crime. But where I moved from in Northern California, and I've seen it here too, fentanyl use, for example, is very much a white-collar, very much a professional drug. I'm just wondering if the whole philosophy of how to tackle these things is just shifting, and how the society can catch up.
Well, I think that if a lot of the big issues over time have evolved and changed, and I think as post George Floyd, there was huge discussion about how should police be used, and what should police be involved in and not involved in, and that's an ongoing debate. Right? You went to our use of force course,
yes.
and we talked a lot about these things, right? If you're going to involve police in mental health and drug addiction, you're probably going to see things like use of force, right? So as a society, I think we're still arguing and grappling with what is the appropriate way to handle this. Now, add to the fact that we're a relatively small community in the middle of the state with not a lot of resources to do some of the things that you might see in Pierce or King County, that gets exacerbated, and it gets... you're going to see a more concentrated version of what can happen, because we only have one option, and that's the police. So I think that debate will continue, and we will see how the police evolve. I certainly would be an advocate for police are good at certain things like catching criminals and holding them accountable. We're not great at some other things, and I would hope that society continues to move in that direction, because the truth is we don't, an addict is not probably best served in jail, but they're also not best served laying on the street dying of fentanyl overdose. So somewhere in the middle we have
that exact conversation a couple of days ago, and I was saying, well, what would you expect the police to do in that situation? They didn't. They sort of, well, just arrest them, as if that seems to be the answer to everything, which clearly it's not. Well,
and I'm glad you say that, because that's who people call. There's only one group that comes when you call 911. I mean, fire too, but really it's the police that the expectation in the moment is that we're going to handle it. Well, we're not drug counselors, we're not mental health professionals. I mean, we're dealing with the crime aspect of this, and frankly, the war on drugs was lost a long time ago, and so to believe that enforcement is going to be the ticket to deal with addiction is probably unrealistic. I would also say, though, the hands-off approach of no enforcement whatsoever, like what was happening in Oregon and to some extent Washington, obviously that didn't work either. So we respond to what society's expectation is. We work for them, right? And that's important, and we have to remember that. And so we can't run around thinking we know what's best and you should just do what the police tell you to do. It's our job to respond to the elected officials and the people who put them in office, and then appropriately respond in a manner that they want their services delivered in.
Leaving aside, I suppose, your role for just a moment, I mean, for you to say the war on drugs was lost a long time ago, that must be a personal failure that you must recognize. Or do you think in your role you could have done something to win that war? Well,
I started as a Denver police officer in 1991 and have done the gamut of police work, as you can imagine, in those, well, I was a sheriff before that, but about 35 years in policing. What I can tell you is all the warrants, all the raids, all the killing drugs in South America, all of the things that we've tried to do have not really stemmed the tide. We see more people die of drug overdoses in our cities than ever before. a lot of people have opinions about exactly what we should do, and maybe they're right. What I would tell you is that I think it's clear that we don't have a really good answer for how to deal with this or why we're in the situation we're in, and I think society's going to have to keep exploring that. But I am glad that there's a conversation about what should the police be involved in. Are we really the best tool to deal with people who are unhoused? In some cases, yes, but in general, probably not. There are better solutions for the population that finds itself in this situation.
Well, if you don't go to Spokane, are you going to stay in Yakima?
Probably not.
Oh, okay.
I think it would be hard to be the chief of police retired in a community. And we have kids all over the country and grandkids, so odds are we will probably move on. But I do want to tell you this, Yakima has been an amazing place. We really enjoyed it here. We said when we got here all we really wanted was to feel welcome, and we have. People have been so kind and so generous, and we have truly enjoyed our time here.
And what do you think is next for Yakima? Have they announced your, I mean, they haven't announced your replacement, but I assume it's in the works.
Yeah, so what they'll do, it sounds like, is they'll do similar to how I came, a search, and then a competition, a group of candidates who will go through a process. And my hope is that Yakima, I think I said it earlier, gets somebody better, greater. Like, let's really keep going and do some great things, and somebody who maybe has some strengths in areas I have weaknesses. I think that's what would be really good for the community. I've often asked, should it be a local person? Well, we have some incredible local talent, and some of my command staff could easily be a great chief, and that would be phenomenal. My only point on that is I think they should compete with the best. You don't have a professional sports team that says we're only going to take quarterbacks from Washington, right? You say we're going to take the best quarterback, and hopefully these quarterbacks will compete for that job and win it. That'd be fantastic.
So what's going to be Chief Murray's legacy?
Well, that's a great question. I will tell you that I think there are some small things. I think the way we treat each other in the department, within the city, is really important, and was to me. I talked a lot about customer service and what that means, and truly I can boil it down to this: it's respect. I mean, we talked a lot about it at the use of force class. It's the way you treat people. It's not whether we're out playing basketball with kids or having coffee with a cop. That's not really what changes the equation. It's the way the everyday officer or detective interacts with the community, and the way they're treated, and the way they come away from that interaction, even if it's a negative experience as far as like a citation, but to feel treated with respect. I think that's really important to me. I've been very committed to the community and the relationship with the community, and I hope that's a part of it. But I'll give you another quick example that I just think is really neat. So our patch, if you look at our patch, has a red-faced Indian. And we get complaints about that every once in a while from around the country. And people will say, that's racist. And so last year, about a year ago, we decided we were going to go down and meet the Yakima Nation and ask them, right? And if this is offensive, we want to get rid of it. And I got to be honest, John, it was one of the neatest experiences I've had in executive level. And I've been in the chief's office for 15 years, 5 here and 10 in Denver. And we just had a great interaction, met with tribal council. They really deliberated and thought about it, and they wrote a letter. And they said, hey, we think it's good. We want you to keep it. And that was a neat experience. That would be a legacy, right? Because now we know that the Yakima Nation, who this is supposed to honor, says, yeah, we feel honored by that. And so it may seem like a little thing, but to me, I'm proud that we were able to do that I was a part of that and got to see that. I never would have expected, as part of being chief, would be dealing with another nation and an image that was important to them.
Well, Chief Murray, whether you go to Spokane, whether you retire, whatever you and Marcy are going to do next, we certainly wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much.
Getting into the grandkid business now, I guess.
I've got 2 of them.
Oh, 2 already.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, Chief Murray, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today, and all the best for the future.
All right, awesome. Thanks.
Cheers.